Hello once again, everybody. Thank you for joining me in the Bettor's Box of BangTheBook.com's MLB betting podcast for Thursday, July 25th. I'm your host, Adam Burke. This and every edition of the Bettor's Box presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB and the number 200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook, 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. Lots of games coming your way to bet here, not just with what's left of the Major League Baseball season, but college football, the NFL as well. We're not that far away. In fact, we're less than a month away from the start of the college football season. You want to have multiple sports books at your disposal so you can shop around for the best prices. So if you don't have an account over at DSI, use that BTB200 promo code if you want to sign up. Obviously, take a look around, make sure it's a good fit for you first and foremost, but we're pretty confident that with their number of wagering options, their contests, all the different stuff that they have to offer over there, you'll like what you see. So use that BTB200 promo code over there at DSI Sportsbook. As you know, it's a Monday, Thursday format here with the Bettor's Box. After the weekend, we'll do a Monday mailbag at Skating Tripods on Twitter or Adam at BangTheBook.com via email. And I just want to remind you that when it comes to the Monday mailbag, the questions don't have to be about baseball. I'm doing my college football season win total stuff right now. I've got the Pac-12 South, the Big 12, and the Independents posted over at BangTheBook.com. Sunbelt will come later today. And our other writers working on all the other conferences and divisions that are out there, they'll have their stuff posted here by next Tuesday. So we'll have a lot of college football season win total content for you. I'm going to put out my top 5 overs and top 5 unders as we head on into the college football season. Or I may just do top 5 season win total bets. I have to look through my spreadsheet here and see where I think there's a lot of value still out there in the marketplace. But these things are going to start moving as everybody's getting involved and getting invested. Games of the year lines are going to probably be on the move again here very, very shortly as position battles are determined and stuff like that. We've got college football media days going on. So lots of stuff going on as we ramp up for the college football season. And also NFL training camps opening this week. Hall of Fame game next week already. So we got NFL stuff for you over at the website. NFL season win totals posted for all 32 teams. We're working on getting some more NFL content up as well. Hoping to do an NFL podcast next week. We've had a few college football podcasts. Talked with Brad Powers a couple weeks ago. Rolf Michaels on Tuesday. Lockie Lockerson on yesterday's show. And make sure you check out his outstanding 2019 college football season preview guide, which is available today on Amazon. We got a lot of football stuff going on right now to go along with daily MLB, WNBA, soccer, tennis, golf, NASCAR. So much going on over at the website. Please make sure you check it all out. And, of course, check out our Friday edition here of Bang the Book Radio with Christian Pina as we chat about this weekend's UFC pay-per-view event on ESPN+. Whew. All right, let's go ahead and get into the format here of the Bettor's Box. We'll start with a look beyond the box score. Then I'll go down the lines, recap some line moves from earlier in the week, give you a pick for tonight's action, and then preview the weekend ahead. So let's go ahead and start beyond the box score here. And look, obviously any starting point for any reputable MLB podcast this week would be to look at this ridiculous series in the Twin Cities between Minnesota and New York. The Yankees take 2 out of 3 here. And look, Target Field played a lot more like Coors Field in this series. 57 runs scored, 20 home runs, 12 for the Twins, 8 for the Yankees, but the Yankees still take care of business here in this series. And as you look at the pitchers, the starting pitchers in particular for this series, Kyle Gibson goes 5 innings. That was the best of anybody. His 5 runs tied Martin Perez for the best start, but he went 5 innings. Perez only went 4. You had every starter walk somebody. You had very low strikeout numbers except for Jake Odorizzi in yesterday's game. Every starter gave up a home run. The final count here in this series for the 6 starting pitchers, 24 innings pitched, 45 hits allowed, 47 runs, 46 of them earned, 15 walks, 15 home runs. So just an absolutely brutal series here when you talk about what's going on with these pitchers. And in fact, actually, I obviously screwed up the math there. 36 earned runs, actually, I should say, not 46. My apologies here. it's been a challenging night. I didn't sleep last night, so had a lot of different things running through my mind and all that. 39 earned runs. One of these days I'll get this math right. 40 total runs allowed by the starters here in this series. So, again, my apologies for screwing up what is very basic addition, but again, so much stuff going on here at this time of the year. But the fact remains, look, the starting pitchers were not good in this series. And what do you take from a series like this? Because obviously, not every series is going to be like this over the course of the year. It's just not going to be the case. So what do you take? I mean, is this just an outlier? Is this just one of those crazy one-off series that just kind of got off the rails a little bit? Well, here were my takeaways. Both offenses are very good. We already knew that. It's not a big surprise to say that. But both of these offenses are very, very strong. The Twins, in the month of July, back up to slugging .517. And I talked about this, I believe, maybe heading into, or maybe on the show right after the All-Star break, something like that the Twins had regressed offensively from where they were over their first 60 or so games in the season. Well, they're kind of getting it back now a little bit. So offensively, the Twins making a push. They'll get Byron Buxton back to help defensively here in the not-too-distant future as well. So, for the Twins here, their offense is very, very good. That's not going to change. And furthermore, they play a lot of games against the Tigers, Royals, and White Sox the rest of the way. 3 very bad pitching staffs. The Twins offense can do some very special things over the remaining 2 months of the regular season here. And, obviously for me as an Indians fan, that's not a great thing to hear. But this Minnesota offense is very, very legit. Going toe-to-toe with the Yankees offense, not an easy thing to do. But they did do that here in this series. Now, that being said, the Twins did hit 12 of the 20 home runs in this series. So they are a little bit homer dependent at times. When you face bad pitching, that's not a big deal. They will face a lot of bad pitching the rest of the way. So Twins overs, certainly a consideration, team total overs, all that type of stuff. CC Sabathia giving up 4 home runs in the first game of this series. Home runs have been a problem for him all year long, really his primary problem all season long. And, he's just not a guy that you want to lay numbers with. And I know the Yankees have gotten steamed a lot here of late, but Sabathia, definitely not a guy that I would be looking to back, especially when he faces teams that do have pretty prolific power. Not everybody has the power that the Twins have, but a lot of teams out there are plenty capable of hitting home runs, as we've seen league-wide. Jake Odorizzi. Jake Odorizzi, a guy that started very, very strong this season, but his hard hit rate has gradually been on the increase here over the course of the year. It did kind of level off a little bit early in July, but obviously he got tagged for 9 runs on 10 hits here in 4 innings in this series. That's one of the concerns I do have about the Twins going forward. Jose Barrios is a regression candidate, 2.83 ERA, xFIP in the 4 range, his FIP up in the 360s. So he'll still be very good, but he's a regression candidate. Kyle Gibson is a guy that can pad his numbers against bad teams, struggles with good teams. I assume Martin Perez will be the same way. Jake Odorizzi probably cut from that same cloth as well. So the Twins do have some questions with their starting rotation, and we'll see how the bullpen holds up as the higher leverage innings mount, as the pennant race gets closer to a conclusion here. I think the Twins do need some reinforcements at the trade deadline. I'm not sure if they make those moves, but I would be weary of this starting rotation here as we go forward throughout the rest of the year. But again, offensively, playing so many bad pitching staffs, they're going to score some runs. So they could be an over team, or like I said, playing some team totals. And just as we wrap up this Twins versus Yankees blurb again, I want to apologize for not being able to do elementary level math here on a Thursday morning. The A's lose 2 out of 3 to the Astros. They lose the game started by Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander. The Astros are 31-13 in the 44 games started by Cole and Verlander this year. They're 35-25 for everybody else. So we have seen a lot of line movement on Cole and Verlander this season, getting bet into bigger favorite roles. Makes a lot of sense. The Astros have taken care of business in a lot of those games. But again, 10 games over when everybody else is out there. And look, that's still very solid. But, again, obviously, you don't want to be laying too substantial of numbers with the Astros here unless it's Cole and Verlander. But I will talk about Wade Miley here in a second. When you look at the A's in this series, though, this feels like kind of a calculated breather for them. I think that they went into this series hoping that Homer Bailey would be good. He was not in game one, buried them very early. They kind of tried to get out of there as quickly as possible against Garrett Cole. And they also had a very feeble effort against Justin Verlander in game three. And I think Verlander is one of those guys that when you see what he's got in the first inning, you have a pretty good idea of how that game is going to go for you. So I think what Oakland did here a little bit, kind of trying to catch their breath some. Not to say that they punted these games necessarily, but almost like looking at situational spots in the NBA. If you're a team that's been playing a lot of competitive games, you've been playing very well, all of a sudden you walk into, the Warriors with 2 days rest, or, the Rockets from a couple years ago when they were a rested team. You kind of try to use that to still be in the game, but also catch a little bit of a mental and possibly physical break. I think that's the case here for the A's. And I think what the A's are going to do now is they'll keep beating up on inferior teams. They were very good at doing that last year. They've been very good at doing that this year. I would expect that to be the case for Oakland, where they're going to try against Houston. They're not going to kill themselves trying against the Astros. But when they face lesser quality competition, they're going to get those games back. I think that may be what we kind of saw here a little bit in this series. And that's not to take any credit away from Houston and what they've been able to accomplish this year and what they've accomplished with Cole and Verlander on the mound, but simply to say that, some teams I think aren't realistic enough about their chances. I think for Oakland here in this series, they look like they had no business being out there against Cole and Verlander, and maybe that's kind of by design because it's very hard to beat those guys anyway. Wade Miley, though, was very good in this series for the Astros. He's been very good all year long. 8 innings, 4 hits, couple runs, walked 2, struck out 6, 12 ground ball outs. The A's did win that game in extra innings, though, getting the blown save off of Roberto Osuna. I hope the markets realize how good Wade Miley has been. But once again, my takeaway from this series is that I think Oakland continues to beat up on the inferior teams and will sort of take these games in stride against better competition, in particular on the road. I think at home, they feel like they have a much better chance because, again, historically, and I've talked about this before, and I talked about it in my season win total write-up for Oakland, historically, when they play good teams at home, they play very, very well. It's a bad ballpark to go and play in. The facilities are not great. It's just not the right type of atmosphere for good teams coming in there. I think when they face good teams on the road, it's a struggle. When they face them at home, I think they have a better chance. And when they face inferior competition, I think the A's are a team that wins when they're really supposed to win and loses when they're supposed to lose. So we'll see if they follow kind of that mantra here over the course of the rest of the season. The Reds narrowly missed out on a sweep of the Milwaukee Brewers. They couldn't get it done in Wednesday's game. The Brewers bullpen really toughened up, and that was a game that Milwaukee needed yesterday, and they got it. Ulyss Chacin leaves that game after 3 innings with an oblique injury, so Chacin out and also Brandon Woodruff out with oblique injuries. Gio Gonzalez has missed some time as well, so this is a Brewers rotation kind of duct taped together at this point in time. You got to be very worried about that for obvious reasons. The bullpen had another pen blow up on Monday, struggled a little bit on Tuesday as well. The Brewers over the last 7 days have gotten 33 innings from their bullpen, 53 2/3 since the break. I think that ranks 6th, but also they don't use any openers, and they haven't played any long extra inning games. So the Brewers are relying very, very heavily on that bullpen right now. I've been talking a lot about that in my picks and tips piece. It's very important. You want to look at that bullpen usage, see who's available, see who's not, see how fresh these guys actually are. And for the Brewers right now, very, very heavy workload. And I don't think it gets any lighter. You've got Gio and Anderson, who are both 5 and fly guys. Davies finally got a visit from the regression monster on Tuesday. I don't know who slots into this rotation. Maybe they just go with more openers. Maybe they use Adrian Hauser piggybacks, something like that. They have a lot of things to figure out right now. Corbin Burns just wasn't getting it done, so how much can you trust him? A lot of things for the Brewers to figure out, and as these innings mount on their relievers, not just in the short term, but in the long term as well, I think there are a lot of situations where you want to look to fade the Brewers because that bullpen has worked extensively the last 2.5 years, and Bullpens are very volatile, a lot of health risks with those guys. So I'd be very, very careful with the Brewers here, and in particular with that bullpen and the overuse that they've had here so far. Now, on the Red side, their offense getting a little bit better here. Josh Van Meter looks like a nice infusion of talent to the lineup, filling the hole left by Scooter Gennett getting hurt. Joey Votto with a few hits in this series. Maybe he's kind of warming up a little bit. But Nick Senzel did leave hurt on Wednesday. Obviously, we hope for the best for him, a guy that dealt with vertigo much of last season. So hopefully he's going to be okay. But, man, a lot of injuries here this week. Joey Gallo with a hamate bone, oblique injuries for Chacin and Woodruff. You also had, Gary Sanchez goes on the DL for the Yankees, Yandy Diaz and Kevin Kiermaier for the Rays, C.J. Cron for the Twins, Ryan Zimmerman, Trent Thornton, Tyler Mahle, Ryan Stanek, Spencer Turnbull, Kelvin Herrera, Adalberto Mondesi, Andrew Heaney's back on the DL again. A lot of injuries here this week, and some injuries that are kind of shaping the trade deadline market, but also some injuries that could hurt these teams in the short term. So again, keep in mind, the quant guys, the modelers that, project out the lineups and the performances that they're going to have, will be making some adjustments here to some of these key injuries. You want to factor all that stuff into the equation. The Giants took 2 out of 3 from the Cubs here. They won both games 5-4 on Monday and Tuesday, lost 4-1 on Wednesday. Could have been a lot worse. Tyler Beede gave up 3 home runs out of his 10 hits, but a couple solo shots and a 2-run shot there from Beede. Pitched out of trouble otherwise. 4 decent innings from Tyler Chatwood, who replaced John Lester. But this Giants team, they're a game over 500. They're obviously right there in the wild card chase. But in the month of July here, they are 7-1 in one-run games. They're 6-0 in extra innings. They've gotten to opposing teams' closers a few times here. This is a very good Giants bullpen, but they can't keep this up. This team cannot keep this up. Look, they're a great story, and I certainly hope for Bruce Bochy's sake that the bottom doesn't fall out here, but I really do think that it's going to. The Giants are running a .326 batting average on balls in play in the month of July. Only the Reds, Yankees, and Pirates have higher numbers here this month. So the Giants are running very well on balls in play. They're running very, very well in close games. They're undefeated in extra innings this month. All of this stuff is going to regress here at some point for them. Yeah, the bullpen's really good, but winning all these toss-up games, no matter how good your bullpen is just not a sustainable way to survive when you're trying to put together a playoff chase. So the Giants will be falling back. I'll probably look to bet against them when they get out on the road here. They're not that good of a team. The rotation's not that great behind Bumgarner. The bullpen is solid, but a lot of those guys working a lot here. And again, I've talked about this before. Winning is great, but one of the byproducts of winning is that your primary relievers take the mound day in and day out. And eventually that level of bullpen attrition catches up with you. So for the Giants here, again, they will be a fade team here for me as they get out on the road, as they have to try and keep this pace up. I think it's a pretty unsustainable pace at that. Been a frustrating season all around for me. Bad week for season win totals. The Angels winning back-to-back games over the Dodgers. In fact, they won the season series, sweeping all 4 of those games. The Marlins, I've got an under ticket on them. They take 2 out of 3 from the White Sox. The Pirates, just a tough team to gauge all the way around. But it's tough. It's such a hard game to bet right now. I mentioned this in my intro a couple days ago to my picks and tips piece. Some of these games are just crazy this year. A lot of bullpen blowups, teams trading bullpen blowups. And the thing about the opener concept is that a lot of times, a team like the Angels, for example, they need 5 or 6 pitchers a night to do their jobs to be able to win games. And that's a hard thing about the opener is that you need so many guys to perform well. If you talk about the traditional days of baseball, 6 innings from a starter, inning from all your setup guys and your closer, boom, you're done. 4 pitchers. Now it's 5, 6, even more when you talk about the matchup generation. So baseball's hard to handicap right now. It's just tough in general. That's not to make excuses for the season I'm having or anything like that. It's just to simply say that the game may be harder to bet than it ever has been. Unless you're really capitalized to lay heavy favorites, like I've talked about several times here this season and last season, unless you're heavily capitalized to play those big favorites, it's hard to make money in baseball. A lot of these games become toss-ups in the late innings, and you have no idea which bullpen's going to perform well that night and which one isn't. So it's been tough. It's been a challenge. We keep working. We keep trying to figure out how to crack this code. But Major League Baseball has been definitely more challenging this season than I can really ever remember it. All right, so looking for some runners in scoring position regression candidates here. I like to try and throw out some different stats, try to find some different angles, stuff like that. So looking at batted ball types with runners in scoring position here, the league batting average on ground balls with runners in scoring position is 252. The Yankees lead the league at 312, Phillies at 298, White Sox 289, Cardinals 287, Red Sox 286. But the bottom teams are the most interesting to me. The Cubs at 198. The Cubs have had very bad luck on ground balls with runners in scoring position, over 50 points below the league average here. They're a team I do expect to get stronger, and really, as I look at the NL Central here with Milwaukee's bullpen concerns, the Cardinals' inconsistencies, the Pirates just not being good enough, and the Reds' inconsistencies, the Cubs are going to win that division. I think they have underachieved. I think they're a team that you want to be on more often than not here over the course of the rest of the season. The Angels, a 205 batting average with runners in scoring position on ground balls. Tigers, 209. Nationals, 229. Giants, 231. So, again, looking for some teams that may regress to the mean a little bit in some of these categories here. I would expect the Cubs, Angels, and Nationals to certainly get better in the batting average on ground balls with runners in scoring position department. I'd expect the Phillies to drop off, the Cardinals and the White Sox certainly to drop off. The Cardinals and Red Sox could stay up there, but the Phillies and the White Sox, teams I would expect to fall off the pace a little bit. Batting average with runners in scoring position on line drives. League average is 666. The Nationals making up for their problems with ground balls by leading Major League Baseball at 747. Again, on batting average with runners in scoring position on line drives. Rockies 739, Mets 731, Cubs 719, so they're making up for their ground ball shortcomings as well. The A's 707. The bottom teams here, the Reds at 590, Astros 614, Tigers 623, Dodgers 629, Indians 630. Again, not that far below the league average of 666, but I would expect the Reds, Astros, Dodgers, and Indians to have some better fortunes on their line drives with runners in scoring position. And as these teams create more opportunities to score runs, that's when we should see this positive regression come to the forefront. The Indians have been a team that has been a great under bet on a game-by-game basis this season. That should change, I think, as their batting average increases on these line drives and higher leverage situations. Same thing for the Astros, Dodgers, and the Reds. Batting average with runners in scoring position on fly balls. League average is 325. The Padres lead the league at 438. Rockies 406. Reds 404. Mariners 383. Astros 364. The bottom five here, the Tigers at 217. Phillies 233. Then a big jump up to the Twins at 269. Mets 271. Cardinals 281. The sample sizes for these are relatively small, in the 110s to 170s on fly balls and line drives. Ground balls anywhere from the 220s to the 300s. But just looking for any kind of edges that we can find. Guess and check, trial and error, just trying to figure out how to crack this code here for this season. Adam at bangthebook.com to get the notes here for the show. I've got all this stuff listed for you if you want to see it in front of you, as opposed to just trying to listen to it or listen back to it the second time through. How about some reliever splits here? I talk a lot about bullpen usage. I talk a lot about fatigue, and I'm experiencing it today, as you can tell by how I keep tripping over my words. But we talk about bullpen usage, and we talk about who's available and what sort of state those relievers are in. Now, when we look at some reliever splits here, 0 days rest, a 257 average, 333 on base, 426 slugging percentage, a 2.55 strikeout to walk ratio. On 1 day of rest, 242 average, 325 on base, 415 slugging. 2.43 strikeout to walk ratio. 2 days rest, a 248 batting average, 331 on base, 422 slugging percentage, and a 2.42 strikeout to walk ratio. So what does this tell us? Well, 0 days rest, relievers have less command. Higher batting average against, higher slugging percentage against. 1 day rest, probably the sweet spot. We don't get the higher strikeout to walk ratio, but we get the better command. 2 days rest, guys like to get into a rhythm. I think bullpen guys, in a lot of cases, like to pitch often. And with 2 days rest, you see those numbers creep back up a little bit. That strikeout to walk ratio comes back down. Maybe they don't feel like they are in as much of a rhythm with 2 days rest. So the sweet spot is 1 day of rest. 0 days rest, you see a command drop. 2 days rest, maybe a little bit of rust comes into the equation. But something I did want to mention here, in back-to-back appearances, so 0 days rest for the relievers, the league average OPS against is 759. It's the league average OPS against on back-to-back days for all pitchers, 759. The Cardinals have a 524 OPS against in back-to-back appearances over 220 plate appearances. That is astonishingly good. That is also a stat I would look for some regression from that Cardinals bullpen. Rangers at 586 in 219 plate appearances. Dodgers 590 in 261. Then you've got to go all the way down to the Rays at 630. So a 40% or a 40-point increase, I should say, from the three best teams in OPS against in back-to-back appearances. So Cardinals, Rangers, Dodgers, I would look for some regression from their primary relievers here when they do work back-to-back games. Now, the opposite end of the spectrum here, the New York Mets, in back-to-back appearances, their pitchers have allowed a 987 OPS. That is the worst in baseball by 82 points. So the Mets bullpen, while it is a train wreck, should not be as bad as it has been relative to league average. So they've had some very bad luck in those back-to-back appearance situations. The Twins are next at 905, and the Nationals at 901. And for the Nationals here, something interesting you may want to keep in mind. They have the highest number of plate appearances against with a pitcher in a back-to-back appearance with 319. It speaks to the fact that their bullpen just has not been very good. They really have to overuse those guys that have been good. Could be a problem for them as we get into the month of September with those guys working a lot of back-to-back appearances. But again, in back-to-back appearances, the best OPS against, Cardinals at 524, big leap, a 62-point leap to the Rangers at 586, then the Dodgers at 590, then a 40-point jump to the Rays at 630, the Mets 987. That's remarkable to me. 82 points, worse than anybody else in the back-to-back appearances. Twins 905, Nationals 901. All right, so let's go down the lines here, take a look at some line moves dating back to Tuesday. We saw some Chris Archer money hit the board pretty heavy against Dakota Hudson and the Cardinals. Archer with some struggles in the middle innings there. We've seen him be better recently, but still that command profile, a big question for Chris Archer throughout the rest of the season. We saw some heavy steam on Steven Strasburg against Peter Lambert and the Rockies. Not a big surprise there. Rockies in complete free fall mode. Strasburg having a very, very strong season. And the Nationals, best team in baseball over the last couple of months. Chris Paddock took some money for the Padres against Jason Vargas. I think Jason Vargas a pretty interesting trade candidate as a bulk reliever. Maybe not necessarily as a starter, but teams that incorporate the bulk reliever should really like a guy like Jason Vargas, who has pitched quite well here of late and was the pitcher whose team won in that game there against Chris Paddock. Saw Zach Davies take a 20-cent line movement and then get hit by regression. So, interesting one there. The Brewers have taken a lot of money here of late, no matter who's on the mound. Always interesting to see guys like Davies take money when they are big-time regression candidates, but he took money in that one and got absolutely blown apart by the Reds in that game. Saw Trevor Bauer money on the opener at BetOnline on Tuesday. It was against Aaron Sanchez. The Indians blew that game in the ninth inning and then lost in extras. That was a bad opening number from BetOnline. The market opener was a lot closer to the line that was out there. Saw some heavy Dallas Keuchel money on Tuesday against the Royals. The Braves were a loser in that one. Braves losing 2 straight to the Royals there in that series. A lot more moves happening and sticking of late. I talked about this a lot in the first half. We would see line moves, then we would see the buyback. Lately, we've seen the line move without the buyback. So that's kind of an interesting change that we've seen here in the Major League Baseball betting market in the second half thus far. Wednesday, once again, the Brewers took money. That was Ulis Chacin on the mound. The Brewers did win that one. Chacin, as I mentioned earlier, leaving with that oblique injury. Dinelson Lamet took some money early on in the game against the Mets yesterday. Then we saw some Mets buyback. That was Noah Syndergaard. Didn't pitch well. Defense didn't do him any favors. The Padres with an easy winner there in that one. Saw some very heavy Mike Minor money come in against Mike Leake and the Mariners. Minor's been a regression candidate most of the year. The market has faded him. I mentioned in my write-up yesterday that it's very eye-opening when the market is on guys that they've been fading with regularity. Minor, one of those guys. The Rangers didn't win that game, but that was certainly a line move that caught my attention. Another line move that caught my attention that I wish I would have played and didn't. Vince Velasquez and the Phillies yesterday took some money against Jordan Zimmerman and the Tigers. Look, the Tigers were playing an early morning game after a late game the night before. They're not going to give a shit about spots like that. The Tigers don't really care about much of anything this season. Got to find some situational spots to fade them, even if the lines are a little bit big. That was one of them yesterday. The market correctly isolated it. I unfortunately didn't play it, but that was one that I do regret here from this week. Saw some money on Taylor Clark and the Diamondbacks against the Baltimore Orioles. It was a loser, but the Orioles, when they're a short underdog, it's still hard to believe in their chances. They were able to come away with the win in that one. John Means on the hill for Baltimore there. But Diamondbacks money did come in and was a loser in that one. What are we seeing here on Thursday? Well, we're seeing some Joe Musgrove money against the against the Cardinals. Sorry about that. That game already going on here as I'm recording. Musgrove, a low left on base percentage, so a positive regression candidate guy, and the market following him a little bit today. Seeing some Max Scherzer steam, his first start back off the IL as he takes on a very, very overmatched Colorado team in this one. I'm not laying the big number with Scherzer, but you can certainly understand why the market likes him there. Jose Barrios taking money for the Twins against the White Sox and Lucas Giolito. I like the under 4.5 for the first 5 in that one. I think it's a tough spot for the Twins coming off of that big slugfest series against the Yankees to go on the road, play the White Sox, empty ballpark, bad team. Good starter in Giolito, but I still think it's a little bit of a tough spot for the Twins tonight. Also seeing some Royals money come in to fade Adam Plutko of the Indians. I mentioned I like the under 4.5 for the first 5 for that White Sox-Twins game. Also like the A's run line tonight, and I talked about this earlier in the show. I think the A's are going to beat up on inferior teams the rest of the way, and the Rangers are an inferior team. Brett Anderson pitching very well, comes off the paternity list for this one. Didn't miss any starts, didn't really miss any time. He's in a nice groove right now. Rangers without Joey Gallo with the broken hamate bone. Trade winds swirling around that team. And Ariel Jurado, who's starting for the Rangers tonight with some poor numbers as a starter. So you can read all about that over in my picks and tips piece at bangthebook.com. All right, so what am I looking at here for this weekend? Well, we got the Yankees and the Red Sox. Like the Yankees tonight, very early morning arrival in Boston. Situationally, not the best of spots for them, but I still want to fade Rick Porcello tonight. But keep that in mind here, that the Yankees played that long series against the Twins. Very early morning arrival, 4-game series here. Sunday night baseball on Sunday, afternoon game Saturday. Could be a tough series physically for the Yankees, but I do still think they shell Porcello tonight. Porcello does go tonight against Masahiro Tanaka. James Paxton, Andrew Kashner Friday. CC Sabathia, Eduardo Rodriguez Saturday. Domingo Germán and Chris Sale on Sunday with Sunday Night Baseball. Both teams are off on Monday, so we don't have any good situational spots to consider. But my big burning question about this series, does the Red Sox offense show up? They took 2 out of 3 there against Tampa Bay, but not a great offensive showcase for the Red Sox in that series. Do they hit? Can they keep pace with the Yankees here in this one? What do we get from Sale on Sunday? What do we get in a bounce-back situation for Sabathia and Germán in this series? I think those are the questions that we have. Maybe later in the series, you bet the Red Sox. Tonight, I do like the Yankees, but I could certainly see a path on Saturday and Sunday where the Red Sox at least get a split out of this series. Dodgers and the Nationals. The Dodgers going back to the East Coast for the second time already since the All-Star break. They played on the East Coast right after the All-Star break. Now they're back out there. Hyun-Jin Ryu, Anibal Sanchez on Friday. Clayton Kershaw to be determined Saturday. Walker Buehler, Steven Strasburg on Sunday. Again, Nationals' best team in baseball over the last couple of months. Are the Dodgers relaxing a little bit with that big lead? It kind of feels that way. I mentioned last week, or maybe it was on Monday, the low exit velocity number for the Dodgers here in the second half. Maybe a little bit of fatigue, maybe a little bit of maintenance, just trying to store up some energy for that big playoff push. Maybe the Nationals can take advantage here. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Astros and the Cardinals, some interleague action here with the Cardinals warming up a little bit. And the Astros in a tricky spot because Yordan Alvarez hitting everything in sight. But he's been DHing. Now the Astros go to a National League park, so they have to actively decrease their defense a little bit if Alvarez is out there, or give him a chance to have some days off. We'll see how they play it. But Jose Urquidy and Jack Flaherty on Friday, Garrett Cole, Daniel Ponce de Leon on Saturday, Wade Miley, Dakota Hudson on Sunday. Ground balls for days in the finale here. How do the Cardinals do in this series? Getting a couple of interesting righties in the first two games. The ground ball guy and Miley in Sunday's game. Will the bullpen regression come for the Cardinals? Kind of like the Astros series price here. It's probably going to be a little bit juicy, but I do like the Astros here a little bit in this spot. Cubs and the Brewers. Kyle Hendricks, Gio Gonzalez on Friday. John Lester, Chase Anderson on Saturday. Jose Quintana, Zach Davies on Sunday. I like the Cubs in this series. I really do. The Cubs have underachieved so far this season, in my estimation. The Brewers with that very heavy bullpen usage. The rotation is in flux. I don't really love any of these three starters here against the Cubs. So I like the Cubs series price here this weekend, a fair amount in that NL Central showdown. Look, we're 6 days away from the trade deadline. A lot of rumors, a lot of news, a lot of buzz. Understand that these are difficult days for these human beings. The day of the trade can be tough, can be emotional. You're going to have pitching changes. You're going to have spot starters. You're going to have a lot of different things going on here. You're going to have teams trading away high-leverage bullpen guys. You're going to have the quant crowd moving some of these lineup numbers around. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on here. And watch for starting pitchers to get skipped. It's a challenging time of the year. If you're a buyer, it's business as usual. If you're a seller, it's a real tough thing. Because not only does it generally tend to signal the end of your playoff hopes for that year, but you're trading away friends. You're trading away guys that you've played next to for several years. Maybe you're trading away guys that are good leaders in the clubhouse that younger players look to. The dynamics of the trade deadline are very, very difficult. I wish, and I talk about this every year, that the trade deadline was a league-wide day off. It should be. These are tough for these guys. Not only are you moving away from friends, you're uprooting kids from their schools and everything else. It's a tough thing. I'm glad that we don't have the August trade deadline anymore when schools were actually starting and all that. But it's a tough thing. So be careful with these sellers here because clubhouse morale can drop very, very quickly. You may like an underdog spot on a team. Somebody gets traded. They don't want to be there that day anymore. So it's a tough time of year over the next 6 days, to say the least. And you certainly want to be factoring that into your handicap. Coming up on Friday, we'll chat with Christian Pina about this weekend's UFC event. And then on Monday, another edition of the Bettor's Box. That'll do it for me. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. And remember that you will never strike out when you're in the Bettor's Box.